what's shaking, everybody? Welcome to House Divided here on Orange Bloods Live. I'm Jeff Ketchum, Chad Hastings, Jason Sucamel, Alex Dunlap. We are all gathered together because today was day one of spring practices over on the 40 acres. Jason and Alex were both on hand. So much to talk about. We're going four squares here on the YouTube platform. Do us a solid. Hit that thumbs up button. Smash it. Just smash the button. Get notifications, subscribe to the channel, all those things. Just do it. Thanks to everybody in the Specs chat. We appreciate a large crowd today. The comments are already just flowing. I won't even look over there because I'm going to get distracted if I do. Guys, we'll just start here, and I'll start with Alex because I haven't even finished reading your full report over on orangebloods.com. I believe you said 1,300 words. So day one, first big impression of anything that you could say first, Alex. The first thing you'll say about today is what?
I think the first thing was Isaiah Bond and Jonte Cook is the outside wide receivers. We talked so much about Isaiah Bond maybe playing in the slot. He played 60% of his snaps in the slot at Alabama, and it figured to be a way to maybe get in Matthew Golden, maybe get in Ryan Wingo, would be to have Bond play in the slot. But, look, man, it's just day one of practices, and sometimes things change. I think that there were some things that we saw today that are going to change. We could talk about those. I'm not sure that this is going to change, Cash. I mean, it looks to me like Jonte Cook is going to be at the Z, Isaiah Bond's going to be at the X, and it looks like DeAndre Moore's out there in the slot. He looks good, man. He looks good. He's sturdy. He's quick, catches everything. And when it's first time up for any of these drills, whether as we were leaving when they were going to one-on-ones or when they first kind of got into stuff when they were just kind of running through stuff versus air, those dudes were the first up. We've seen with these guys when they practice with the outside wide receivers, it was like last year when we just said, man, like, how do they get Jonte on the field, right? Maybe could he play in the slot? And I'm like, this Sark and this offensive staff, man, whenever they have these guys working out of the slot, that's where they work. So that to me was there's a bunch of interesting things, but that was one of the first things that popped off to me. And man, it's a good looking group out there when you got number 1, number 7, and number 0 out of the slot.
Jason, what about you?
A lot of the same. I'm kind of skimming Alex's notes. I haven't had a chance to read them, and we have a lot of this, I think, same observations. The receivers, they have 2 going at a time, and it's Bond and Cook. Those are clearly the 2 lead dogs. It was Jonte, and then right behind him would be Golden, and then Wingo in there and Butler. And on the other side of the field, it was Bond, and then Parker Livingston. I think I had number 36 written down. And then the slot was DeAndre Moore and then Ryan Niblett second.
And Wingo, the thing about Wingo and Golden is they both moved from side to side for different drills. So those guys are cross-training. So Wingo's playing both the X and the Z. Golden is playing both the X and the Z. And so what I think they're trying to figure out is how exactly this pecking order is going to go. I don't think, Jason, it's going to end up where they have both Wingo and Golden at the X behind Bond, right? It feels like
reps there. And with all due respect to Parker Livingstone, I mean, he's not automatically going to be slotted into that second spot in the rotation behind Bond. And then I'm like, okay, the Silas Bolden, where does he figure in? Does he move right into the slot when he gets here? I mean, it's kind of some unproven talent, but it's a wealth of riches. Amari Nyblack was out there going, looked good to me. I mean, I know he's missed some time in conditioning, but he was going through drills. He was usually the last tight end to go, but he seemed to be moving fine.
Do you know what I think that was, Jason? I think that was just, he hadn't practiced all winter.
Probably.
I think maybe since it's his first, he's just kind of gotten back into it. Because he was having to poke around like he's the last tight end, even after
the last guy to take the reps. Usually like a tiny little walk-on dude. I'm like, who's this walk-on? I go, oh, shit, it's Amari Nyblack. Well, that's where it makes sense. But, hey, those freshman running backs, dude, both of them. Alex pointed out Jarrett Gibson to me, like just his lower half. But then I saw Christian Clark, and I'm like, damn, dude, like their lower halves. I'm like, I would not want to tackle those dudes. They don't look like freshmen. The other thing I kind of noticed just in looking at some of the freshmen, you can tell the guys that are freshmen for the most part, aside from those running backs in the upperclassmen, like not even upperclassmen, guys who've been in the program for a year, really. Colton Bosick, Billy Walton, both those dudes have put on some really good lean muscle mass. Montap weirdly like slimmed down a bunch. Like, I don't know what he came in at, but he almost looked to me more like a safety almost. I mean, he's so lean at this point. Just looks like he thinned down a bunch. So, but yeah, Bosick's put on some good weight. Billy Walton, Colin Simmons. Colin Simmons is Colin Simmons, but his body, even though he's a tremendous prospect, you can just tell the difference between the guys who've been in the program for a year, 2 years, and gone through those off-season programs. But yeah, I mean, a good-looking bunch overall. And like Alex, I think the wide receiver rotation is the one thing that stood out to me.
Guys, I know that I care and most Texas fans don't, but how'd the quarterbacks look? Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning, did you get to see him throw any footballs? If so,
it's a quarterback battle. It's a battle for that. No, I mean, listen, maybe Alex saw more than I did because I'm shooting pictures and I'm running around all over the place. But those two looked fine. I thought, again, they're usually running two receiver routes at the same time. So it's always Quinn and Arch throwing at the same time. They looked fine. Now, some of the backups, when they were throwing balls downfield, Alex, those go routes, those balls were landing like 10 yards behind some of the receivers sometimes. So first day, man, early morning, whatever. But yeah, I mean, Quinn and Arch, they did their thing. They just routes on air out there for the most part. So, I thought they looked fine.
Yeah, I mean, they shoot us out right as they were going to wide receiver corner drills and stuff. But man, I did see it was good. Like, not before I got to see Isaiah Bond on a nice whip route. He beat Manny Muhammad. Just a good sharp throw outside to the breaking to the sidelines to the field side from Quinn. Also, there was a good throw from Quinn before practice started. That was a deep ball in the end zone to Ryan Wingo over Jelani McDonald. Really well placed ball. I mean, those guys always look good in these. I mean, they look good in practice. And I think from what Jason said, the fact that we're just kind of used to seeing them. We're kind of used to seeing them by now, and we know how they look. I think what gives you the best perspective is, like Jason said, man, seeing some of those guys kind of behind them. It's like, man, it's a big difference. Those guys are on a different level.
The one thing that I remember about the quarterbacks the most, there was the first rep of one of the drills, and the two receivers went out simultaneously, and both Quinn and Arch threw to the one receiver. So the other receiver didn't get a ball thrown to him. And Sark was pissed. Sark's, how fucking hard is it, guys? He cussed them out for everybody to hear. So I'm like, okay, day one, they're not pulling any punches yet. So.
Alex, a few things that stood out to me from your report, mainly because we talked a lot about this yesterday on the Overreaction Monday show, right? On the defensive side of the ball, Jahdae Barron starts out at the nickel. We'd had that conversation, and look, these things can change, and he'll probably do a bunch of moving around. But on day one, you've got Terrence Brooks and Malik Muhammad at the corners, and he at the nickel position. Jelani McDonald at safety, and presumably not.
But not with the ones. Not with the ones today, right?
And then it was hard. It sounds like we didn't get a ton of answers on the edge and the defensive end groupings, right? Because it sounds like they were just all kind of meshed together, and that maybe if Trey Moore is working on the same side as Barron Sorrell, I have to believe that eventually some of this stuff will wash out. But I couldn't help but note, I thought your observation on Colin Simmons and Trey Moore might have been one of the more interesting notes in there, and Moore not quite looking exactly like you thought he might look. And even though
don't you remember it being long and just like Tarzan-y? Like, don't you remember that from the UTSA stuff? Maybe it's just he bends the edge so much and he looks like his arms are longer and stuff. Jason maybe has a different. I mean, he's 31, right? He's 31.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's right. Dude. I mean, he's more compact than I thought. He's got shorter arms than I thought. And whenever you see him standing next to Colin Simmons, while I agree with Jason that Colin Simmons is not you're not going to get him mixed up with like, one of these super like Kendrick Blackshy or one of these other dudes. I guess he hadn't been in the Texas program, but you could tell that guy's been in the Alabama program. My God. He's like Colin Simmons still looks good to me. And whenever you just see him juxtaposed versus Trey Moore out there, they're both listed as 6'3". I'll be dang, dude, if those guys are both 6'3". Colin Simmons might be, but if he is, Trey Moore's not. Trey Moore's more compact. His arms aren't quite as long. I just always pictured they would kind of look a whole lot alike out there standing next to one another, but they don't. Simmons is longer armed, more angular, longer levered, and just more slender. Kind of to Jason's point, he's more slender. Whether that changes after some time in the program or not, but I'm not sure. I just think that their body types are just a lot more different than I would have expected.
I thought it was interesting, and Alex, maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. The very early part of practice, they had the D tackles and kind of your defensive end edge guys. And I was taking pictures and I'm looking at them. And Trey Moore was there, Colin Simmons, Vosick was there, Zena was there. I don't think Sorrell was in that group, and I don't think Ethan Burke. They must have been. They weren't with the D tackles, certainly, so I don't know who they were working with.
Right, but you have to remember, it's like whenever I was writing up and I wrote up the guys who were with each group and everything, and Vosick wasn't with either group, and that was because a lot of those guys, like that period, you might be thinking of was it during special teams too, where they have to take a group of guys over there during special teams?
You know what? Yes, you're right. Yep, that's
so
right.
It's like, there's a lot of variables that are still like, well, what would have been like if special teams wasn't happening, or this guy wasn't some kind of personal protector?
Yeah, you're right. They were doing punt stuff on the other side. Yep.
We only get access to a limited part of practice, and some of the portions of practice, they make it a little bit harder on us to figure out what's going on with various things like that. We have to use context clues and know what drills to really look at. And on defense, it's the pursuit drill, and they've quit giving us anything but one rep of pursuit drill for each group. So it's tough to put together, but we have a lot of clues, and we know a lot more now than we did before. Like everything we thought, there's a lot of what we thought that's just kind of changed, and we're going to need to readapt and figure it out.
Yeah, I see a question in the chat. I'll just really easy. Who was RB1? It was CJ Baxter taking the first reps, followed by Jaden Blue. Does that mean anything in the long run? Probably not, but it was a note that I saw. Okay, CJ's the first guy in the drills, every drill to get the basically just a handoff. But I don't think that means a whole lot right now.
Trace Crutchfield's asking if Vosick was in pads. Yes, he was in pads, and he was out there, and he looks bigger. He looks good. He looks good.
To be clear, they're not in full pads.
Today was a shell day, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Guys, you both of you have kind of mentioned it a little bit, but anybody else you'd mention where you'd give Torrey Becton and the strength staff extra credit? I'm always fascinated by that getting off the bus thing of, man, does he look the part and all that? We know there's certain guys that fit that bill, but for y'all today, anybody really jump out where you'd say, man, Torrey Becton got after that guy?
Trevor Gooseby.
I was waiting for it, Alex.
The backup left tackle, man. He's just because his feet were always really good, right? He was just undersized. I don't know what he weighs. Jason, do you know off the top of your? He looks like he weighs 320 pounds.
I didn't see Gooseby on the roster.
74, 6'7", 313. Well, look, even 313 is a lot bigger. He looks big. He looks bigger. We're talking about a guy that moved like a 280-pound dude, right? Whenever he first came in. And he still moves like that, but he's bigger. He's more filled out. He's got just he's not one of these 6'7" guys that's unwieldy and top heavy, right? He's got the long arms, but he also has the long legs, which is good for his kicks. And it's also good for the fact, like, I'm not gonna have any other past offensive linemen catching these strays here. But Texas has had some guys before that were super tall, right? That were
who you're talking about, Alex.
That had a really long trunk, right? And when you have a really long trunk like that, you can really get overextended over the balls of your feet, and you can become unwieldy and unbalanced. With this guy, he's high cut, which of course means he's got kind of a high butt, and that's better for his kicks.
The Sean Adams High Ass Award of the day goes to Trevor Gooseby.
Yeah, but it's it's I would give it to him. And dude, I also man, Jonte Cook. He's put on some mat. He looks like a race car, dude. I was like, I'm not sure whether this guy you say he's he looks like some kind of, I don't know. Just I said something, like a racehorse or a sports car, just something really awesome and expensive, and you know what I mean. Just that you would just love to have. Like he's put together so well, man. And he's so fast and quick, and I think that some of the mass that he's put on through his lower body, you can see some mass he's put on through his core. Upper arms, he's playing the same position that Xavier Worthy was playing last year, and he brings a lot of the same things to the table as Xavier Worthy, but one of those things is not necessarily a ultra thin kind of Gumby like frame. You know what I mean? He looks like an alpha out there. So I say Gooseby, Jonte Cook, and there are others that look really good, but those would be the two that would jump off to me as far as Torrey Becton awards. I'm not sure if Jason has one besides that.
I would tell you, you can't attribute it necessarily to Torrey Becton unless it's happened in the last couple of months. But I've got a picture in my photo gallery. It's on the front page of Orange Bloods. True freshman Xavier Filsaime. Man, that dude looks like he's been in the program 3 years. I mean, he's just cut up, really lean, good-looking dude. And one other, I'm just going to point out the obvious. You don't realize sometimes how big these guys are until you're kind of standing out there. I'm standing out there taking pictures, and I think it was you, Alex, who said, "Hey, watch out!" And I stepped, and all the quarterbacks were running by, and so Arch ran by me like by a foot, probably ran right by me. I'm like, "Damn, man! You forget how big Arch Manning is. I'm talking tall and just."
He would send you to the hospital with his helmet and his pads on. If he were to run into you at that fast jog, you'd be like I said,
probably bigger in his lower half than he is his upper half. But I mean, I'm like, damn, you'd
be drinking through a straw this week.
Yeah, we know how good of a runner he is, and you think about, just the power. I mean, he's athletic, but he's got a lot of power too. But just you kind of forget sometimes until you almost get run over just how big some of these dudes are, man. So.
Well, you think back to that quarterback picture that they took last summer when they all had their shirts off and they were flexing, and you were like, "Oh, Arch is just a bigger athlete than I think, people I assumed he would be coming in. You think of Eli, he's different than his uncles in terms of the way he's kind of structured physically.
Well, he's listed at 6'4", 220, and Catch, we've talked this week about guys sometimes exaggerating, or UT exaggerating heights and weights. I would bet he's every bit of 6'4", 220. He might even be over 220. I don't know. He's just a really big, thick, solid, well put together athlete, and I almost got run over by him today. So.
Glad you didn't.
Honestly, it'd have made for a better story if you had.
I'll work on that next time.
Jason getting posterized by Arch Manning on the first day of practice would have made for a story that would last for the next 10 years. I've got one question left before we let you guys go and take a little bit of a break. Y'all been going 90 miles an hour really since about just trying to get to practice today this morning. It sounds like traffic was awful. Then you get there. You're trying to get everything together. You're cutting videos. You're writing practice reports. You're doing the YouTube videos. So we'll let you go in just a second. Oscar has a $1.99 super chat. Single best thing any of you guys saw today. It's probably a repeat of something that you've already said, but single best thing.
I'm super. I think that those two young running backs, Jarrett Gibson and
Alex,
Christian Clark, those they're going to push to play. No, they're not. They're going to play. I just don't see how they don't push to play. And I know that Sark always has the 1,000-yard rusher and all the rest of this stuff, man. But dude, Christian Clark can catch, man. He can catch. So I think for me, I wasn't really expecting to go out there and say man, both those guys. I'm not sure that this is just a CJ Baxter, Jaden Blue thing anymore. I think there's some new variables that have been added in that are very, very explosive variables.
Yeah, I should have gone first because that was my answer too. But seriously, both those. I just don't know how they're going to cut into those carries of Baxter and Blue if Baxter and Blue stay healthy. It's such a log jam of backs there. But those dudes look college ready. They really do. I mean, just physically, they look every bit as big as those guys have been on campus for a couple of years. I think the other thing for me would just be seeing Isaiah Bond, running alongside Jonte Cook, or not alongside, but on opposite sides of the field. Now, both those dudes did have drops today. They each had one drop that I saw, and Isaiah Bond was doing push-ups. But
no, he's stuck again.
Yeah, that's what I said in my write-up. I was like, oh, doomsday or whatever. But, watching those two, like Alex talked about Jonte, and it's one practice. But I've been seeing Jonte since he was, a couple years removed or into high school, junior year and senior year of high school. I've always thought Jonte had something special. Those two dudes, man, they're going to be a handful for opposing defenses, and that doesn't even get into all the other guys that all the other weapons Texas has. But those two alone, I'm not going to say they're going to be Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell, but you lose those two types of talents, 2 first-round talents likely to the NFL. Usually, you're expecting a huge drop off at the receiver position. I don't know that we're going to see a huge drop off from those two, because I think Jonte and Isaiah Bond, man, I think both those dudes have something special.
Our guy, former 5-star offensive lineman Alfio VC, also Alfio Randall VC back in the day, says Roy Williams never dropped a ball. Now, come on, Alfio. Come on now.
Roy probably needed one hand too. Roy probably never did drop a ball.
That's the thing. Roy would drop a ball because he was trying to make it as difficult as he would behind it, one hand behind his back. He played football so easily that in practice, he would just toy with the football. Occasionally, it happened, Alfio, I promise. Occasionally. It's good to have former 5-star offensive linemen in the chat. All right, guys, my last question. We kind of talked about, the sports car. You talked about the big guys. We haven't talked anything about defensive linemen really yet. So who was your jungle cat of the day? Was there a guy on the defensive line that just off the hoof looked really physically impressive after the offseason? Just, however you want to go with it. But amongst those guys, who would you single out?
I mean, I wouldn't call. I always like to use the jungle cat for the closing speed. But as far as the dudes who look, I mean, Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton are always going to look really, 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 really good. Now, whether Vernon Broughton holds up, they haven't playing nose for now. Whether he holds up better against the run this year, we'll have to see. He always looks pretty good. Looks a little bit bigger this year, and Alfred Collins just looks like Alfred Collins. So, the thing about the defensive line, Catch, this wasn't a day to get a really good eval on those guys. You know what I mean? They're just kind of going up against each other with the bags and stuff like that. I think through the course of spring practice, we'll start hearing about some of these guys. Certainly, it was cool to see. I mean, Sydir Mitchell looks like he looks like he's the new Tavondre Sweat, and that he's the new kind of monstrosity that's out there on the football field. I'm not saying he's the next guy that's going to be doing Heisman poses, catching touchdowns and stuff. But he looks really good. Tia Savea, he's smaller, but man, he looks really, really dense. But I say, man, if we're just talking about the one like the Jim Nagy, like the prettiest. The prettiest player on the field, like he always says in his scouts, man. I mean, that's always gonna be Alfred Collins.
Guys, real quick, I'm gonna let you guys go, but he's crashing the party. He's coming in late, not really late. He's surprising us with a visit. Anwar Richardson is back after talking to Steve Sarkisian and doing the full UT Day One experience. Jason, Alex, you guys can go if you want to. If you want to stick around and hear what Anwar says in crashing the party.
We have the modcast later, right?
Yes, we do.
We'll have a bunch of Jason Anwar catch stuff here a little bit later.
You guys can go. You guys can go.
I mean,
Thanks, boys.
I'll see y'all then.
Anwar, welcome.
Typical Alex. If it doesn't interest him, he's out. Typical Alex. It's like, oh, well, you guys will talk late. Well, yes, let's just cancel the show. Okay. Hey, everybody, don't hang around. Let's just get out. Hello. I felt like, Catch, that if everyone's talking spring football and I've been out there, I felt like I needed to come in and weigh in, not only for what I saw, but give you some Sarkisian feedback as well. There's
We're
no need to
glad
wait.
you did. I
There's
didn't
no need to
think
wait
you'd be
until
back.
4 o'clock for that.
Yeah, I knew you were talking to Sark, so I didn't know when you'd even be home. So I didn't even bother because I thought you'd still be maybe on the 40 acres. The mic is yours. Go.
He was on time today. He was on time.
Volleyball clap for Sark.
Yes,
There it is.
he was on time. So I'll give you I'll give you some of my thoughts on spring, like what I saw, and then and I can give you some Sark stuff as well, right?
Go for it.
So from the all beach, all get off the bus, Chad Hastings kind of team. The guys, the Alfred Collins, Vernon Broughton, Jere Bledsoe look was like real, and it's a different thing, right? Because Tivandre Sweat is kind of that, the bigger, got kind of more massive guy. Byron Murphy is a little bit shorter, a little bit more compact but strong. And now we're talking about guys who are 6'4", 6'5", long wingspans and big. Like that to me really stood out when I looked at these defensive tackles. And I said to myself, one of the things I thought about, I was like, I looked at a guy like Aaron Bryant who's 6'2" and 307, and that's big. And then I looked at him next to those guys, and I'm like, oh, wow, he's a little bit smaller guy. Go ahead and, a little inch that could, but he's not, right? That's no disrespect to that. But, I thought those guys looked pretty good. I'm trying to go through the guys that I saw. I thought the receivers, I didn't see the drop portion of it. We're all at different things at different times, but I thought Isaiah Bond looked really, really good to me, as far as a pass catcher is concerned. The thing I would say about him is I thought he had really soft hands. And like when the ball, because sometimes a ball comes into a guy and it hits him in the chest, and you can just feel the effort for them catching
the ball.
Yes. And when it came to Bond, it was like a pillow. Like it just like he caught it with a pillow. And I thought to myself, like, wow, you could just see the difference in what he looked like. I liked him. I like Golden as a returner a lot, to be quite honest with you. I thought when Chris Jackson was giving guys a lot of praise, Golden and Cook seemed to get a lot of it from when I was out there. But I liked what those guys looked like. And of course, Jonte was doing what Jonte does. And so yeah, I liked all those guys from that perspective. I heard you guys talking about the quarterbacks, and I heard him talking about Arch Manning and how big he is. It doesn't mean anything towards anything. It is just like a little mental note. Trey Owens is not the smallest quarterback either.
Big boy.
He's huge. Like I looked and I was like, and I'll be honest with you, and maybe shame on me on this one. But I looked and I was like, who the hell is that big ass quarterback that's out there? And I was like, oh snap, like that guy is really big. So I thought
I think it's 6'5", 236.
Yeah, he's a pretty big dude, right? And so I thought he looked very good. And like the last one I would say, I thought Peyton Kirkland, you guys talked about big offensive linemen, like clearly I've been reporting obviously since last year about Trevor Gooseby and the left tackle position. So it's just kind of all sometimes unfortunately when we're so far ahead of stuff, then people catch up like 5 months later. But so the Trevor Gooseby thing doesn't surprise me, but the Peyton Kirkland thing surprised me a little bit. I thought he came in kind of as a big guy from high school who is just big, and I didn't think he was really in that great shape when I saw him. I was kind of unimpressed, to be quite honest with you. I saw him today, and I said to myself, oh, okay. When you guys talked about the Torrey Becton Award, that to me is that guy that Torrey Becton got his hands into and said, hey, better eating habits, a better workout habits. You need to get serious. And all those offensive linemen they just all look like big human beings. Like those guys don't like Connor Stroh. I mean, I'm just looking at him like, who the hell is this big ass dude here? And clearly, but it's just you expect it from the Cam Williams and the DJ. Like, you expect those guys to be massive, but all those guys, and I was talking to someone from the staff when I was out there in practice, and I was like, man, I'm just looking at this thing. They're like, yeah, you go back to a few years ago, because you didn't see guys out there like this. And I'm like, yeah, like I look at it and I'm like, these guys looked tremendous. So the offensive line, Catch, good luck. They'll have to figure out who the hell to play, but I don't look at that thing and say to myself, it's just going to be whoever gets it. Like, whoever gets in is going to be the guy that earns it. And there's a lot of good candidates, and there are just a lot of massive human beings. So that was kind of some of my biggest takeaways from the practice itself.
Hey, Anwar?
Yes.
Real quick.
Yes.
Because I got a super chat I want to direct at you. We've got Sark's comments, but before we do any of that, let's pay a bill and let Lisa tell you about Specs.
Let's do it.
You're needing. Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
Real quick on the super chat side of things, because it's a $5 super chat, and Football Junkie asked it a little ways ago. And surprisingly, Anthony Hill's name hasn't popped up once today, and maybe that's just the design of day one, and we're looking at so much of what we haven't seen before. Did you even notice Anthony Hill out today? How did he look?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I noticed him. More chiseled. If I would say that, I thought he looked. Someone said something about a WWE guy. Like, he looked like that part of a real chiseled WWE. Some guys get bigger and they're just bigger, but you can tell that there was some weight room, that stuff that was put in. So I thought Football Junkie, he looked chiseled, he looked fast, he looked mobile. I didn't see any loss of speed by any stretch of the imagination. I saw fluidity, I saw agility from a guy like Hill. I liked what I saw when he was out there. When I think about the linebackers, he stood out probably more so than any of the other linebackers that I saw over there. Again, in the limited portion that we were able to watch, but I liked what I saw from Hill. I thought he looked great. Most all these guys, I'll be honest with you, most all these guys look really damn good.
Volleyball clap for Torrey Becton, because
yeah, those guys look good. Like,
it
those
wasn't
guys,
always like that.
No. I mean, the guys, they like, I remember, it's you know what it's like? It's like you just turn around and you look at one person, another person, you're like, who the hell is that? Who the hell is that? Like, I saw like a Jelani McDonald, right? And I looked at this guy and I was like, well, that guy's pretty huge. Who the hell is that? And it's the guy, I mean, his arms were just jacked. Like, I'm talking about jacked, but not in the way where he didn't have any movement. You can still see the lower leg strength as well. And I looked at him and I said to myself, okay, that guy's in press coverage by any stretch of the imagination. Like, that's going to be a guy that's going to be, you're not going to push him off of you. And I thought he looked really fluid. So it was just one guy after another. They all looked pretty good to me, Catch.
So, Anwar, in terms of the Sark stuff, let's hear what the head coach had to say. Anything really jump out today? Obviously, it's just the first practice, and he's just kind of getting things going. But what do you have to say?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, he talked about it being, basically guys out in their underwear at this moment. But he did say, even though it was a first day of practice, that he really did like what he saw out there. He said he didn't want to make too much of it, but he really, he had high praise for everybody that was out there. He liked the energy that was out there. He also was really happy with the numbers that he had out there. Catch, he's talked about this a little bit before, but they were able to really get a lot of good practice. He felt in there with all the new guys who were on campus. I think there's like 25 of them. So they were able to get a lot of good work. ones versus twos, twos versus twos, threes and threes. And so he felt really good about that. I know there's a super chat that came in there. And so I know it's El Presidente who is back. But El Presidente. So we're going to go ahead and
let's El Presidente.
It is El Presidente.
All right. El Presidente wants more. Are we portal defensive tackles away from this team being the SEC West champs? Well, there is no more SEC West.
Yeah.
It's
just type Atlanta next time.
Exactly.
That's all you're worried about. You got to be one of two, and the two go to Atlanta. That's what you're saying, basically.
When I asked him about one of the questions I did get a chance to ask him was about the defensive tackles in that position. And he talked about, he said Collins and Broughton have actually been doing a really good job over the past couple of seasons, been key contributors. And he said he viewed them as the progression of the program. He talked about Morrow and Keandre, and then those guys being replaced by Tavondre and Byron Murphy. He feels like this is part of the progression where he's going to have Collins and Broughton being the next guys up for him. Of course, the transfer portal guy as well, but he really believes that those guys were key contributors. And he did mention Bledsoe as well, but he feels like, though, he said it's very similar to Murphy, that he believes that they will have guys at that position who will be able to leave off or take over where those guys left off. And he felt really good about it. And he felt really good, honestly, about the productivity that they've had the past 2 seasons.
Anwar, another super chat directed to you, $4.99 from Texas TV. How did the running back room look out there? We had the other two guys talking a little running back. What'd you think?
Mm-hmm. So there's a couple of things. I thought not much. We didn't get to see a team portion. So, all you had a chance to see was some individual work. So CJ Baxter obviously stands out, of course. And of course, Jaden Blue stands out. Who was the other guy? Where is
Christian
Clark? Christian Clark. Yeah, I like Christian Clark. What I saw from him, I could use probably a little. This is just nitpicking, right? This is real nitpicking. Just a little bit more muscle on him going forward. Not a ton, but just a little bit more muscle on him. But those guys were out there. I mean, you also had some, your guys run through. I thought, he was asked. I don't have to put my thoughts into it. Sark was asked about a couple of guys, Sadir Mitchell, Blackshar, and Savion Red, and asked about their weight. And he felt like those guys weigh too much. And he admitted that. He said that they weighed more than he would like them to weigh. And he said, the good thing is it's March. They don't have to play a game right now. And he said, once we get to summertime in July and it's over 100 degrees every single day, he said those guys will lose the weight. But when you look at Savion Red, he's like 240 pounds, I believe, at this point. Yeah, 5'10", 240. I mean, that is what it is. That's a little too much good eating with that NIL money. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, and that's what. Yeah, and Anwar, we were talking about that the other day, and you just gave us that great piece of info. We were talking about, is Sark going to tell us there's a plan for him at 240, or is he going to say he doesn't need to be 240? Sounds like we got our answer today.
The plan is, if he can't sweat it out during the summer, he's not going to play. That's pretty much the plan. Like, the plan is, you weigh too much. That's too big for a running back. You ain't going to play that way. There will be no Savion Red package at 240. Like, let's just we can do that. Right. Then he'll have to sweat it out during the summer. And if he doesn't sweat it out during the summer, then he's not going to play. Mitchell, Blackshire, and Red were 3 guys that he said it was too much weight.
Interesting.
One of the things he also talked about, and we've had this in the war room, Catch, is that he talked about they don't really have the leaders that they want to have at this moment. And I've been writing about this over the past few weeks, and he kind of did come out with that. He said they don't have that Roshan Johnson kind of leader on the team right now. And he said he found himself in practice today having to be more active because they don't necessarily have those leaders. And he said that's okay. That's okay. They didn't mind that. But he did talk about having the need for some leaders to eventually stand up and eventually emerge there and eventually be the vocal people that he wants at some point. So leadership ends up being a thing that it will play a part, because there is this blending of a lot of new guys with some of the older guys. And really, when, Sark talks about culture and reestablishing culture year after year, right? That's going to be something that they have to really work on, is making sure like everybody gets on the same page. And so really that was another thing, Catch, as far as making sure the new guys, everyone gets on the same page. He talked about Quinn, speaking of, leaders, but he did talk about Quinn and someone asked him about his body. Quinn is at 205. And he said, basically it's interesting, Catch. I felt like in my write-up, Catch, I said that he looks at 205. And I said, I feel like he probably should add another 5 pounds before the season. And he actually had said they're hopeful that they can add another 3 to 5 pounds in order to strengthen him up. And I was like, damn, Sark, we're right here. But he's still at 205. I would like him to be at 210. I feel like that would be a better weight for him. But he did mention Quinn. And then the thing that Chad would love to geek out to just a little bit, the last thing I'll talk about is that they did work on the headset in practice, the helmet stuff. And so he did say that is something that they were working on, getting that communication portion as far as getting the plays in. He did say that they're not going to make that the only thing that they rely upon, because he said the danger of if you just focus it on the headset and not signaling in plays, if for some reason the headset goes out, you're going to have to figure out how to signal in the plays. And so they're going to make sure that, yes, they're going to focus in on the headset and be able to communicate, but also make sure that they can signal in the plays as well. And he talked about from a defensive standpoint, I think he said, it probably end up being, it's probably, more likely to be one of the linebackers that ends up wearing the headset. He said they've kicked around the possibility of a defensive back or maybe one of the star guys, and they're still working through that. But he also talked about, he said the idea that people aren't going to no huddle just because there's a headset isn't true, because you're going to have to, do some defensive signals. So anyway, I think those are some of the highlights of what he had talked about.
And that's going to be a big change to have once that is fully implemented. And Anwar, correct me if I'm wrong. Are we just conference games on that at the beginning, or are they going full blast at the beginning? In terms of
I won't be able to correct you on that one, Chad. You have to correct me and let me know what that one looks like.
At some point, I'd read the idea that maybe they were just thinking about true conference games. So maybe it wouldn't exist for Colorado State. So that'd be another reason why you might want to go ahead and, like you said, have the old way ready to go, whether the new way screws up or you're not allowed to use it. But we'll have to see what the kind of specifics are on all that.
Cotton hair, how dare you? How dare you?
Cotton, he can do 19 things at one time.
I was getting the buy or sell hotter than question ready for Chad, and at the same time listening to Anwar talk about the headsets.
Yeah. In fact,
who can do that?
Cotton, watch this. He was doing all that. He's probably got at least one more question for Anwar. We're going to have Anwar tell us if there's anything else from Sark. Plus, we're going to let Anwar take a breath now, and Catch is going to tell you about prime shrimp. That is how much he can multitask.
I never stop multitasking. I'll tell you about Prime Shrimp right now. If you go to primeshrimp.com or scan that QR code, there's like 8 different types of shrimp that you can order from Prime Shrimp. We're talking about meals for less than $15. It takes less than 10 minutes to get them ready, and then they taste fantastic. So, like, what are we talking about? Like, I've already spent too much money on non-Prime Shrimp meals this week, and they weren't as good. I just need to do what I'm telling you guys to do. Scan the QR code. I want that New Orleans style barbecue shrimp. That's my favorite, but they got so many flavors. The best thing you can do, scan the QR code or go to primeshrimp.com and check it out. And if you order more than 6 packages, you're getting 30% off the entire order, which basically means they're giving you shrimp dinners for free. Who else is doing that? Nobody. So call Prime Shrimp and get that done today. There you go, Chad. I'm done multitasking there. Back to the show.
Hey, you know what? Tory Becton would probably approve of that shrimp for some of the guys, right? Mix in some shrimp into the diet in some spots.
50 cents of Savion Red wasn't eating Prime Shrimp.
Yeah, probably true. That is probably true. All right, so Anwar.
It was wrapped in bacon.
Yeah, that is going to be a couple. It sounds like 3 big stories to follow that Sark hope become smaller stories to follow. All right, Anwar. Anything else from Sark, from practice? What else do we need to know?
One last thing before, and I'll get out of here. He did like the receivers. And he did like what he saw from those guys today. I did ask about Jonte Cook. So I was able to get 2 questions in. 2 questions in today, Catch. I was on my game, man. I was on it. And I did ask about Jonte Cook. I ain't wasting no questions this year. And I'm not going to have anybody talk me into bad questions this year. And Jonte Cook, and he said, look, I said, look, I know we before we used to ask you a lot about Jatavian Sanders and when we're going to see a little bit more of him. And I said, is Jonte Cook kind of that guy that falls in line, that former 5-star that just has to go through the progress? And he said, one of the things he noted was, he said, when we got here, he said Jatavian may have been one of the only top 25 people in the country that we had on our roster. He said, he goes, according to you guys, right? And it says, he goes, now our goal is to bring in more of those. And you see us bringing in more of those guys as we try to fill up our roster with those kind of elite players. And he said, he felt like Jonte, when it's all said and done, he goes, look, Jonte may have had to sit behind 2 potential first-round picks. And he goes, so what, they wanted to make sure that he was able to learn from those guys. But he said, Jonte without, he just said, just from the naked eye, Catch, he said he thought he actually had a really good day of practice, made plays when the ball came his way, had a lot of positive energy that was out there on the field. And he said there's a lot of guys that could also grow, but he feels really good about where Jonte is. And like I said, had, from a naked eye standpoint, had a really good first day of practice. So that would be the last thing I would leave you on as far as Sark is concerned.
Hey, Anwar, my last question. Lay out for us the rest of the week. I know they got pro day coming up, more practices. They got coaches clinics and stuff. Just for those watching right now that aren't quite sure, now that day 1 is in the books, what the rest of the week looks like. Can you lay it out for us?
Yeah, pro day is tomorrow, and so that'll be tomorrow afternoon, and that'll probably be the time where we get, Jordan, big day for a guy like Jordan Whittington. Realistically, I mean, really, it's probably all about Jordan Whittington at that point.
Fingers crossed that you can work out.
Yeah, I mean, it's really about him and him being able to run. And they, and the only other guy would probably be a Jet Bush, I think, might be the only other guy that he wasn't invited. So, that would be a big day for him. It's just to maybe potentially get a look. So that's tomorrow. Coach's clinic is going to be on Thursday. So, we won't be back out there. We won't be back out there for the rest of the week. We won't be back out there until next week, more than likely. So that's kind of really, and I think there might be something on Saturday, Catch, but I know we're not invited to that one. We're not invited to anything else. And in fact, I asked about a Saturday thing. They're like, Saturdays? No. I don't know if we've ever had you out there on a Saturday. I was like, yes, you have. Like, you guys have had us out there on a Saturday. Like, man, I don't know about that. So we'll probably be back out there next Tuesday. But that'll be the end of it. So Sark basically said it's still early in their process. They're still early in their install as far as spring is concerned. They'll kind of continue going through the motions. But as far as day one's concerned, a very positive report from them.
And Anwar, any truth to the rumor that Xavier Worthy's going to run the 40 tomorrow because he's been dreaming of a 4.20? No, that's not happening.
I mean, if Xavier Worthy does anything other than show up and smile with the new Lamborghini that he has parked outside, like, I don't know what else he should do, because that should be it. Like that. Yeah. This is. I got my money from my agent. This is my new vehicle. Here's some new bling, some new jewelry that I've got on, and that's it. Like, that's all that Xavier needs to do. It's really about Jordan Whittington, though. Really, no doubt. Jordan Whittington. Yeah, Jordan Whittington, maybe Jalen Ford Catch. I don't think Jalen Ford didn't do a lot there. So I think Jalen Ford, this is a kind of a big pro day for him. Big one for Jay Witt, and Alex Dunlap will be out there providing you with a plethora of updates.
I think Jatavian Sanders, could make himself a little bit of money tomorrow if he could get down to the low 4.6s that he talked about at the combine wanting to run, and then he didn't hit. I saw a mock yesterday where he was in the 3rd round. He's kind of been late 2nd round. I don't think Indianapolis helped him. So of the guys that we keep talking about, 1st round, 2nd round, day 1, day 2 guys, I think Sanders is the one guy from that group that you'd say, if you do go test, you could help yourself.
Yeah.
Adonai Mitchell can't do more than he did in Indianapolis.
No.
Worthy could do some position drills with teams that are interested, but from a testing standpoint, I think Sanders is the one guy that if he could run tomorrow, and Chad and I are doing a show and we hear that Sanders goes 4.61 in the 40, that might be something that could help him out. There's some teams that there's been a lot of scuttlebutt that he and Jared Wiley are now in competition to maybe the 2nd tight end off the board. That might tell me that Sanders needs a good testing day.
Wow.
Because Jared Wiley's not Jatavian Sanders. So that is even a conversation somewhat blows my mind, but good luck to all those guys tomorrow. Anwar, thank you for coming on today. Like, it was a pleasant surprise. It was like a free meal. When you go get dinner or lunch with somebody and you reach for the wallet and then the guy's like, oh, no, I got it. That's what you showing up out of nowhere felt like. You paid for lunch today. Thank you.
You're welcome. Hey, two things before I go. There was I think it was Tom Herman before Jared Wiley's freshman year predicted that he actually would be an NFL player. Remember, we were kind of blown away. We're like, what the hell is he talking about? But that thing becomes true several years later. And who also benefit this tomorrow? Tavondre Sweat steps on the scale at like 360 or 359. Yeah. If he could just show teams like, hey, by the way, after the combine, I've actually lost more weight and I didn't gain a lot more. I'm just saying that could help
That's a
him
good point.
in the margins if for some reason he was down to like 360.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right.
All right, guys. Hey, no problem. Catch, not only can we do a show today at noon, we can do one at 4. It's amazing.
Hercules.
I'll see you guys later.
Later, Anwar.
That's Anwar Richardson, and that other show coming up is a big-time modcast today. If you have not checked out the modcast, it's going to be a good day to check it out. Also, if you haven't checked out orangebloods.com, so many notes today from the first day of practice. Jason Sukumel referenced a photo gallery, all kinds of pictures over there. There are videos going out in terms of social media and everything, but check out orangebloods.com. There's your QR code to get involved. We are 165 days until kickoff, Texas and Colorado State.
We had a super chat earlier, real quick. Dirkley asked for $5, do we think we'll have an SEC logo on the field? and jersey for the spring game in April. Yeah, I do.
I would imagine they'll go ahead and embrace it. I mean, heck, we're hearing stories that now they're trying to figure out the new format and revenue sharing and stuff. The SEC is already factoring Texas and Oklahoma into all that. So I'm imagining, Catch, even though it won't be official yet, won't be July. Yeah, I'm assuming they're going to slap an SEC logo on the field and you'll see it on jerseys.
Well, remember when they had recruits in town back in January for the junior day, one of those guys I can't remember which guy it was, but somebody did the first photo shoot and the jersey had the SEC patch on it. So
was it Butler?
What? I can't remember.
Who? I can't. Yeah, I can't remember if it was.
It might have even been like Silas Bolden. It might have been one of those transfer guys that was. I can't remember who it was, but someone was the first guy. And they were already leaning into we're an SEC football team. I would imagine spring game rolls around. There will be pieces of evidence that will let us know they're embracing the SEC.
Yeah, no doubt. We appreciate everybody jumping in the Specs chat today. We've had a good, lively show talking about the first day of spring practice. Let's catch up on a couple things, including sinus and snoring specialists. If you need to catch up on a whole lot of sleep because you don't sleep well, this is the place that can help you. Sinus and snoring specialists. They're right there at Parmer and Mopac. And Dr. Slaughter's been doing this over 20 years. The very latest in ear, nose, and throat. We're in March, which means weather gets crazy. Going to be wet, then it's going to be dry. You're going to have allergy days that drive you nuts, and all of a sudden it kind of goes away. You have all that going on, they can help you. They got rid of my allergies for good. They dealt with my snoring issues and sleep apnea stuff. They can do the same for you. So check them out. Sinus and snoring specialists. Feel clear, rested, and healthy. You're going to need to be all those things for this football season because it is going to be a wild, wild time. Catch. Now that you've had a chance to kind of catch your breath and filter it all in, you've heard from the three of the pairs of eyes that were on the scene today for Orange Bloods. What's on your mind right now?
I think the wide receiver stuff is obvious. We knew those guys are super talented. Isaiah Bond working on the outside. And DeAndre Moore running. We talked about this yesterday, right? What if DeAndre Moore is one of your top 3 wide receivers? How does that impact what happens on the outside? Just hearing that Isaiah Bond was on the outside, that's really good news for DeAndre Moore and Ryan Niblett. Now, those two guys, if that were to hold, those two guys have quite a battle now. They're in the same class, same position. Really, only one can be on the field. It's a really interesting position battle. Obviously, DeAndre Moore is ahead right now, but watching those two guys compete is really interesting. And now to get on the field, all of those other receivers, Isaiah Bond and Jonte Cook, sound a lot like Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell. How do you get – you're going to have to be really good to have Sarkisian, I think, take one of those two guys or both off the field. So with Bond in the slot, you wondered, well, God, how does Moore Niblett get on the field? Now with Bond on the outside, how does Wingo? How does Matthew Golden? How does Silas Bolden in the fall? How do these guys make it all happen? I thought that was really interesting. I think the Trevor Gooseby thing's really interesting. And maybe we'll talk more about this tomorrow, but when he was recruited, the thing is, he was such an athletic guy, but he was like 265 at one point as a prospect, 260, 265, 270. And you see a lot of these basketball-looking players at tackle in the recruiting process. They pop up all the time. You'll find these guys that are like 6'6". And we always talk about them. They're the kind of the failed basketball players. They're tweeners in basketball. And these guys love to play basketball, but you always think to yourself, dude, if you played football, and you threw 50 pounds on your frame, you actually might make the money in football that you think you're going to make in basketball and you never make. So we see Gooseby as a prospect. And the thing that you say to yourself is, he's like a savings bond. You don't get to spend it right away. You know, you got to sit on it and let it accrue interest. And then when you're 18, you got some cash, right? He shows up and he's like 270, 275. And you know when you recruit him that maybe he's a 3-year project. But if you're patient, if you let that thing develop, you could have an NFL football player. But more times than not, these guys, they don't make it. Takes too long. They don't add the weight. It just doesn't happen for whatever reason. Gooseby is a 3-year project that seems to be 2 years ahead of schedule. That he was supposed to be a 2026 guy. And that after one season, he's close to 315. If Kelvin Banks weren't on campus, I think the whole show today would be about Trevor Gooseby and left tackle. And is he the new Kelvin? You know what I mean? Like, It's because Kelvin Banks isn't there. I don't know that we're fully having the Trevor Gooseby conversation that's warranted. But like Alex said, if he's as good on the field as it looks like he is in terms of his physical development, we talked about this coming out of a war room a couple of weeks ago, but can he push Cam Williams? If the goal is to get your best 2 tackles on the field, first and foremost, can Trevor Gooseby be the second best tackle in the program? And can he push Cam Williams? It's too early to quite say that, but the questions in my brain, I think those are the 2 main things from today. More than anything else, I've got receivers on the brain. And I would also say that Jahdae Barron, remember in the chat, I can't remember who it was. It might have been JD that was like, Jahdae Barron came back to play on the outside. And I was like, well, no, he came back to play because he needs to play better. And it will be a really big indictment on Terrence Brooks if Barron is on the outside instead of in the slot. But if he's on the outside, it does to the slot what Isaiah Bond being on the outside does to the slot on offense, right? It's the same thing. It's like, depending on where those 2 guys line up, the trickle down is, okay, now the battle is this. Barron today was at the slot and playing the nickel, right? So Terrence Brooks is your outside starter. I don't know that it's going to completely stay like that, but on day one, your first team safeties and your corners were what we thought they would be. It was Muhammad. It was Barron in the slot. It was Brooks on the outside with your field corner. And then you've got no Andrew Makuba today at first team safety. Going to make him work for it a little bit. You had Michael Taft, who's the vocal leader of that group, along with Derek Williams. If Barron had moved, it just changes the way we're talking about the secondary. Those are the things that, for me, they're little nuanced things because we're a long ways away from the end of the spring, a longer ways away from the fall, a longer ways away from that first game. But there's some little clues today about from what we need to be watching from now through the very beginning of September. And some of that stuff to me is really interesting. Gooseby being this far advanced, 13 months, 14 months since he's been on campus, that's Torrey Becton warranting a volleyball clap because that guy has thrown on like 40 pounds, 40 good pounds while keeping that athleticism. It makes him on paper, I think his upside is as high as Kelvin Banks. Now, he's not, I think, as good of a player as Kelvin Banks, but I think he's a better physical specimen than Kelvin Banks. He's got maybe quicker, more natural feet for the left tackle position than Kelvin Banks, but he wasn't the dog on the field that Kelvin Banks was, and he needed to grow up physically. Banks shows up day one, put me in, coach. But Gooseby being ahead of schedule on his physical development, but being there, all those things that you said about him when he was 270. Oh, if he can get, it's a hell of a thing to say. If you can only slap 50 pounds on the guy, and then he doesn't lose the thing that makes him special at 270. Oh, what a football player you might have. Oh, what a football player they may have.
Yeah, that's a big developing story. You're right. By the way, we got a super chat that'll make everybody smile. Also, another offensive line comment here. Also want to remind everybody, and a little big news coming with the tournament here. As I tell you about AV Consultations, we've been telling you about them and what they do for you. They can do for you. 255-8678. Remember, I've talked about some of those freaky cool setups people dream about. This could just be you want to get a little bit bigger screen. That's it. Or it could be speakers. I was just in a situation where no matter how much we turned up the TV, we couldn't hear the damn thing. You know that situation? If you just need the speakers to be badass, to go with your cool TV, AV Consultations can do that. They can tie it all together. Remember, let them handle every detail. Let them get all of it. The TVs, the cords, the speakers, the furniture. Let them get you the setup you want. They've been doing it since 1988. And here's your big news. If you get in on the Orange Bloods bracket contest, we're putting together a cool package of stuff for the winners. And one of the stuff the winner's going to get is a TV from Audio Visual Consultations. I was communicating with our man Tom today, 55-inch TV. How about that? 55-inch Samsung TV from Audio Visual Consultations will be a part of that package. Pretty cool. Audio Visual Consultations, 255-8678 or avconsultations.com. And remember, tip-off is what? Thursday morning, 11 o'clock-ish. So you got to get in on all that stuff before the games tip on Thursday.
That's badass, man. That's dope. Like, guys will be tweeting out and putting it on the socials. The way, if you're not on Orange Bloods, the site, and you should be, how dare you? But if you're not, we'll be getting that stuff out on our socials. Fill out your bracket. I mean, big screen TV on the line. Plus, there's a chance we're gonna have some stuff. I've
heard
Rogue Shop. Like
I've heard Rogue rumors,
and it's unconfirmed. But Specs is gonna get back to us on Thursday.
Okay,
there's a chance we might even have some Specs love in the prize package. So fill out your bracket. The worst thing that could happen is you don't win. The best thing that could happen is, hey, honey, we get to go on a vacation this year because I'm saving money on the TV that we talked about you allowing me to purchase. So, guys, be on the lookout for that link. Get in the game. It's going to be a lot of fun.
All right, Catch, you ready for a little buy or sell before we head towards the door?
Let's do it. I got my questions. I got a hotter than. I'm ready to go.
Beautiful. All right. Well, we'll let your hotter than finish it off if you would like. I'll start if you want.
Let's do it.
All right. Let's start with practice. Buy or sell number one. The biggest UT football note for you today is Bond on the outside, more in the slot.
Yeah, buy. We talked about it just a second ago. You could make the case that it's Gooseby, but I won't, as it relates to 2024 and this football season, that might be the biggest thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then to just piggyback off the idea, what does that mean for Golden? What does it mean for Wingo? And if they're both kind of cross training, man, Steve Sarkisian could have some ideas to throw around on a football field. We'll keep our eyes peeled for it. Buy or sell number two, Catch. You think Texas hoops will get Colorado State on Thursday? That play-in game, of course, is tonight. You'll go with the Rams.
I'm going to say buy, and that really doesn't have anything to do with like insight from me. That just has to do with when the bracket came out, all of the experts were like, Colorado State this, Colorado State that. Nobody wants to play Colorado State. Okay. I mean, if you say so, because I can't pretend that in the last 5 months I've watched 5 seconds of either Colorado State or Virginia. I haven't. Yeah. But I know that like Jay Billis and the guys love them some Colorado State. Okay. I'm actually going to watch the game tonight. So let's see what they're made of.
Yeah, I'll peek in on it as well. For those of you that didn't know, I'll do it up for you. 8 o'clock or a little after 8:10 tip scheduled. And True TV, if you're like me and you're a Spectrum customer, that's channel 57 on my television. I have to look it up every year because this is the only time of year
where we find out, oh yeah, True TV, that's on my package.
Right, like throughout the year, TBS and TNT I'm good with. I know right where they are, but I never know True TV. So learn that one for tonight. It's the second game up. Colorado State, Virginia, to find out who plays Texas. All right, Catch, buy or sell number 3. You were surprised the Texas women got a 1 seed, but you think they'll live up to it and get to the Final Four.
Sell. I was surprised about the number 1 seed. I really thought that second loss to Oklahoma would just keep them out. I thought Stanford winning the Pac-12 regular season would be enough for them to get the 1, and then USC beat them in the tournament, and then everybody said they were going to get a 1. Yeah. I was kind of shocked, if I'm being completely honest. I don't think they're going to get to the Final Four because I don't think they shoot the 3 ball well enough. They rely so much on their inside game. You know, they'll score like 60 in the paint. But then the teams that play them close and give them scares will make like 13, 14, 15 3-point shots. And at the end of the game, you'll go, Oklahoma outscored Texas in 3-point shooting 45-9. And you're like, like that feels extreme, and I'm fearful that it's somewhere along the line in this tournament they will exit because some team's going to get hot shooting the outside shot, and Texas just doesn't shoot that well enough. This is a sport, and this is really a year in women's college basketball where there are shooters and scorers and playmakers and individual players that can get hot and really do damage. Caitlin Clark's kind of the obviously the poster child for the sport, but she's not alone. So ultimately, I think that they're going to run into somebody, and their kryptonite's going to be a team that gets hot from the outside.
It will definitely be a tough road. All right, let's expand out on both of them. Catch, buy or sell number 4. Before anything tips off, you'll take the field over UConn on the men's side and South Carolina over the field on the women's side.
So I'll take the field on the men's side because UConn's not this. Look, I remember when UNLV was going for the repeat. That is what, and for the kids out there, that was only like 35 years ago. Mm-hmm. But boy, what a team. What a team. Like a super team. And they couldn't do it. Ultimately, taking the field on the men's side always feels like the smart thing. But on the women's side, when you have one of the great UConn teams, and now you've got one of these South Carolina teams, it feels like one of the great UConn teams. They're undefeated, man. It's crazy. I'm selling because I'll take the field with the men, but I will take South Carolina over the field on the women's side.
So you are buying. That's exactly what I set up. Yeah.
Oh, field, man, I wasn't listening close enough. That's where the nitpickers in the chat need to be. Catch isn't listening. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
That's interesting. Yeah, it does feel like South Carolina might be that team. All right, and finally, Catch, a big happy birthday to this dude. Today is Bruce Willis's birthday. For you, John McClane is on your action star Mount Rushmore.
I'm gonna sell. I don't have an action star Mount Rushmore, and I'm not even gonna begin to start putting the pieces together on the show because I might just stream of conscious talk for 30 minutes to work that out. I love John McClane. I almost don't even think of that character as an action star. That the movie's even bigger than an action movie. So I'm going to sell, but it's not because I don't love John McClane. He
Right.
might make a different kind of Mount Rush. I tell you what I'll do, though. I'll think about it the rest of the day.
Okay.
And then tomorrow I'll update you on whether or not he actually made the Mount Rushmore.
Fair enough. Yeah. So sad about Bruce Willis and what's going on with him right now. But happy birthday to Bruce
today, right?
What's that? 69. Nice. That's right, for Bruce Willis. And yes,
we all be so lucky to make it to 69.
I've not heard any updates on Bruce lately, but the medical stuff on him has been pretty bad these last couple of years, having to get out of the business. So hopefully he and his family are doing well today. All right, that's my buy or sell. Catch, what do you got?
Buy or sell number one, you're like me. You want even more John Tace Cook stock after today.
Oh, yeah, buy. So glad to hear. I mean, I thought it's what we would hear, but it's been even better. Not only is he out there on the outside, was he one of those first receivers out there, but I saw him described as a 1-1A by one of the Orange Bloods guys, that it was definitely those two, he and Bond. He's right up there at the top. Then to hear Alex talk about what he looked like. When I said all Torrey Becton team, he could have said anybody he wanted. One of the names that popped out of his mouth was Jonte Cook. He said he looked like
Cook was like a car that you wanted to buy but couldn't afford.
One of those sports cars that when you pull up at the restaurant, even if you pull up in a badass Mercedes, there's a certain kind of car that can pull up where even you go, well, damn, that's what I thought of. So yes, give me all the Jonte Cook stock you can take. I think the country's about to find out who he is.
Buy or sell number two. Not enough Arch Manning hyperbole for your taste on day one.
Buy. I needed like a timeless description for one of the passes. I needed, game changing. I needed, some national story. We still got a bit of the day to go.
Where were the Aaron Rodgers or Peyton Manning throw comparisons where it was like, I'm just saying.
I needed
used it.
If somebody later in the day could get me a video of Arch just throwing a pass and then like Patrick Mahomes reacts with the eyeballs, give me one of those. Come on, we got some time.
Or somebody could have compared him to Tommy Frazier running the football. Just needed a little bit more hyperbole. Buy or sell number three. We don't need to say the names, but after day one, you have an idea of some guys that might have to enter the portal when it's all said and done after the spring.
I'll be honest, and I will sell because I haven't been thinking of that. So I'll sell and just say, everybody's still got a shot. Everybody's still on the roster. I was not thinking of that today. So I'll sell. I'll be nice and I'll sell.
I was. I'm a bastard. Buy or sell number four. I wonder what Sarkisian would think about that. Come on, Catch.
Yeah.
Buy or sell number four. We need to go $5 on the show more often because it means less work for us.
Well, buy. I mean, that can come in handy. I certainly have noticed that on the Outsider show. When that show fires up with a $5, it's not bad. Yeah. Well, especially a day like today where you have spring practice and people out of practice looking at it and they're bringing the information to us. Absolutely. If we can go $5 and the three people that aren't us have the info, we should do that as much as possible.
You're just sitting here eating like a Subway sandwich and letting them talk. All right. And finally, I've decided to go 20s versus 90s hotter than.
Wow. Okay.
Today versus one of the hotties of the past.
Okay.
You ready for this?
I think so.
Sydney Sweeney is the it girl of the moment, right? Like hosting Saturday Night Live and everything else.
Yeah.
She's hotter right now than in her prime, Shannon Elizabeth.
I'm going to take a sip of water here.
This is a man's game.
It is a man's game. To a degree. The answer is obvious. That is a sell for me. I'm a Shannon Elizabeth guy. She's a Texas girl. Shannon Elizabeth in American Pie is what I am thinking of. And there is not a version of Sydney Sweeney I have seen yet that makes me think anything that's close to Shannon Elizabeth. Now, let me qualify. The only major Sydney Sweeney event I have seen is Madam Web. And that will change your mind on a lot of things, because the idea around them and the script and everything will make you think that Sydney Sweeney and Dakota Johnson and the rest of that cast are horrific. They're not. They're not. The stuff around them is. So that's the qualification. But I'm still going to go with Elizabeth. I'm going to go with, is she Corpus or Waco? She's one of those two. She's Waco. Okay. I'm going with Waco. One of the few things, Catch, that I will stand and I will stump for from Waco. There aren't many of them. It's like Shannon Elizabeth and Health Camp, and I can't think of anything right away that follows it, but I'm going with Shannon. She's awesome. You go Sweeney there?
Yeah. I feel like maybe there's some recency bias there, but she's pretty.
You like those sad.
They both have the same thing kind of going for them.
I can see it. Yeah, I can see it. That sultry hotness thing going on.
The thing that Sydney Sweeney has going for her, that I think even more than Shannon Elizabeth. Sydney Sweeney loves being hot. Like she has an amazing amount of self-awareness.
Okay.
That she's hot and she embraces it. And I feel like she bounces on purpose. There was like, if you saw any of the Saturday Night Live stuff, she made sure to bounce.
Okay.
There's a bounciness to her that even Shannon Elizabeth wasn't like so outward about the top heavy part of her that it was like, watch me bounce these in front of your face. The second thing is, I think Sydney Sweeney enjoys getting naked even more so than Shannon Elizabeth.
Okay. That is what Madam Web needed, for the record. That could have helped.
It could have helped.
A little bit. Anything could have helped. Dude, you couldn't name me an actor right now. Name any actor or actress, anyone, and you could have said, Chad, they'll walk across the screen naked. It couldn't have hurt Madam Web. I don't care who you're talking about. Anybody. Tommy Lee Jones walking across the street naked could have helped.
I've never done a 20s versus 90s hotter than. That was
good.
The debut of Today versus 30 years ago, specifically.
Yeah.
That was good. I did feel like some recency bias there.
There was some, it was, and for me, it's a time bias because, Shannon Elizabeth is always going to be Shannon Elizabeth. Let's clean up let's clean up this super chat for sure before we get out of here. Oscar, our man in campus, says, for $4.99, where can 175 at 5'7" with intramural playoff experience get me on the quarterback draft board? Catch, your thoughts. You've been in charge of that quarterback draft board for a long time. You know it better than anybody. Where does it get Oscar in the mix?
With us on this show, Oscar, what you missed 1997. That would have made you Jeremy Jones, and you could have played on that team in 97.
Yeah, that's true.
You could have been Jeremy Jones going from the intramural team to the Longhorns, but now you just need to be here with us.
But see, he's saying he's dreaming of QB there. He's dreaming of QB. So what?
I'm ignoring him.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
I'm telling him, like a lot of players that think they're quarterbacks and then end up playing other positions. I've just not even given him consideration. I've moved him to wide receiver.
All right. Fair enough. Oscar, we always appreciate those super chats. I love Blake's chat because I think he really gets it. This is a deep level fan. So awesome to have these young guys come in and sit for a year or two and not have to play immediately on the offensive line. It's a good comment, Blake. And the key word you typed, have to. Exactly. They don't have to. And it also, Catch, feels like that's where Texas is at receiver. Somebody earlier in the show was, chatting about, boy, remember the days when it felt like, hey, what's behind Xavier Worthy? Are they in trouble after Xavier Worthy? Stuff, discussions like that. Feels like this group's a little different. and there's going to be all kinds of opportunity. And speaking of, let me get your thoughts on this one. That somebody sent it earlier. Cotton, we appreciate it. Give me your gut catch. I know it's after one day, but that's what we do around here. Who's returning kicks?
Golden Bolden.
You like the Golden Bolden?
Golden on kickoff returns, Bolden on punt returns. I think you can justify the takes through the portal on special teams alone.
Okay, fair enough. Also, I read in the notes, I think it was in Anwar's notes today about kick and punt return. Bond, Cook, Golden, Livingstone, Butler, and Wingo all taking some shots at return. But he says the ones who stood out as returners, Golden, Bond, and Cook, all stood out to him as returners. So just an idea there as the first day of practice is here. We are here. We are closer to the season. Very exciting. Before we get out of here, one more chance to try to make you hungry and head out to Hayes City Store. I haven't been out there in a little while, but I'm making plans to do it. You need to do the same thing. Get on out to Driftwood. FM 150 in Driftwood is where they are. That's your QR code. Get on out there. Get on out there with friends and family. We've done it for birthdays, or it could be just a get together, or it could just be you wanting to have some of the best food and drink that you have ever had. Go check it out. Go get that home run dip to start off. That's one of my favorites. I love their margaritas. I'm a margarita on the rocks guy. It's one of the best I've ever had out there. And if you love key lime pie, I would tell you to go try theirs because it is just about the best key lime pie I've ever had in my life every single time. 40 beers on tap. The drinks are incredible. Food's incredible. You'll be treated well. Service is always amazing. And it is some of the best scratch-made comfort type food you've ever had in your life. Chicken fried pork chop is the next thing I'm trying out at Hayes City Store. Go check them out in Driftwood. All right, Catch. Anything else we need to hit today?
No, I think we're good.
Let me remind everybody that a modcast is coming up. That is normally a reason for good news. Today, it is the reason for great news because it will be the four heads coming together, the brain trust of Ketch and Sukamel and Dunlap and Richardson coming together. Sounds like a law firm, doesn't it? They've got all your Texas football info. 3 of those 4 were at practice today watching what they were allowed to watch. The other one, this guy, has been multitasking all day and taking in those notes and processing it and reaching out to sources. He's been talking to people who also saw practice. They're going to give you everything they've got at 4 o'clock this afternoon. So thank you for liking, subscribing, and getting your notifications. We had a great group in the Specs chat today. Another reminder about those notifications and the subscribing to the YouTube channel. That means you'll get those notifications. You sign up for those, all free, of course. Like, subscribe, get notifications. You'll know on your phone or computer, tablet, however you do it, when a new show is hitting, and we'll have plenty of info for you. So thank you for your support. Thanks to Specs for the support on the chat. Thanks to everybody who jumped in today. Everybody have a good rest of your Tuesday. And remember, Modcast coming up at 4 o'clock. Until tomorrow at noon, we are